So when you talk about long-rumored and awaited Nintendo Switch games, Metroid Prime 1 Remake and or Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is absolutely at the top of that list, and in today's video, I want to boot up Metroid Prime Trilogy digitally on the Wii U together, walk through memory lane, discuss why these games are so revolutionary, have a broad discussion where all of the leaks and rumors suggesting that we should be getting some kind of re-release of one or multiple of these titles stem from, and have that final big discussion on whether or not we can expect Metroid Prime to launch in some way, shape, or form on the Nintendo Switch in 2022. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we are booting up some of my favorite games of all time, period. I'm actually doing it on a version that historically I have not played, as I picked this up digitally on the Wii U because, well, you should. It's only $19.99 for three of the best, first-person style space adventure shooters. You can't just call it a first-person shooter because it's not traditional in that sense, but the first-person Samus experience, which is absolutely fantastic. I booted this up. I've only gotten just a little bit into Metroid Prime 1 so far with the motion controls, because how I played this back in the day was on the GameCube, primarily replaying Metroid Prime 1 the most. Then I, of course, completed Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and ultimately one time, only once, on the Wii played Metroid Prime 3 Corruption to completion. And while I have the heaviest nostalgia for the first game by far and away, I have great memories of all three, and I'm hopeful that we will get them all back. Now, to kind of discuss the leaks and rumors around this and why it's so heavily in the news that these are a project, you have multiple people, Emily Rogers, Nate the Hate, otherwise known as Nate Drake, claiming that yes, they have contacts at Retro. They know that some kind of Metroid remake or Metroid Prime 1 remake or Metroid Prime Trilogy is in the works and should by all accounts be completed. Now, there's an interesting story that stems behind this, originally with it first claimed to being the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Then Emily Rogers says, well, here's essentially what happened. Retro got the project to remake Metroid Prime Trilogy 1 through 3 all in HD and bring it over to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this game, of course, was re-released in a compilation on the Wii with these motion controls, which, to be transparent, I am not a fan of. I really like being Prime 3 Corruption, being the only way to play that in motion controls is a lot of the reasons why I only beat that game once, just because even though they do feel good for motion controls and they work well, I'm not saying they don't, I just really enjoyed the button style controls on the GameCube. I was even such a not fan of the Wii whenever it came out, like just forced motion controls is my gripe. Now, the Switch is the best of both worlds. You get a game like Skyward Sword HD, you have the option to transition to a button controller layout if you would like. However, you still have the option to play that game with motion that, to be fair, it was designed for. And that's what I would like to see with these potential re-releases of the Metroid Prime games. However, Prime 3 Corruption was locked to just that motion, both the Wiimote and nunchuck combination, which, again, I'm not the biggest fan of, at least being forced to for, 20 to 40 hours of gameplay, having to constantly aim and restructure yourself just wasn't for me, wasn't my cup of tea at all. I'll have to remember where to navigate. I know we got to go to the Chozo Ruins, and you guys bear with me on whenever I do these talking gameplay videos. Sometimes I get a little bit distracted and sidetracked, but I know we're talking about right now kind of the origins of the leaks behind this being Emily Rogers, and essentially the idea is that yes, Nintendo wants these re-released on the Switch. You had originally a different studio, which I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments if that studio that was working on Prime 4 originally was ever fully revealed and found out. I'm assuming I need to go back in here the other direction because I do not have my double jump yet. I believe that it was I don't know what the studio's name was, but somebody partnering with Nintendo was developing Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo was not happy with the quality check that they did later on in that game, essentially just being like, listen, this isn't the direction we want the series to go. At that point in time, whenever that mystery studio was developing Metroid Prime 4, Retro Studios was assigned to do the Trilogy HD for the Nintendo Switch. And yes, here we are on the right path now. For the Nintendo Switch, And while they were assigned to that, of course, that Metroid Prime 4 got totally scrapped and restarted. It got handed to Retro, at which point, and this is all according to Emily Rogers, just so you know, I'm not making this up. This is her words, not mine, but kind of a breakdown of why these games have been talked about and rumored for so long. So Retro, essentially, at that point, she hears that, yes, for sure, it is still being worked on and coming. However, it may only be a Metroid Prime 1 remake and not the entire trilogy. That is all she can verify, right? So if they don't do the entire trilogy, I think that is a big misstep. We need to get all 3 games before we get, of course, Metroid Prime 4 being really the big future for the series. If I'm a betting man, and Nate Drake recently just said this over, I think on Family Boards, or maybe it was a tweet, he was responding to somebody, that he said that it's very likely that Metroid Prime 1 remake or trilogy does show up at the next Nintendo Direct. That's kind of where I'm holding my expectations for it, because the summertime Direct for Nintendo is always kind of their biggest annual showcase. Typically it's attached to the E3 name, of course, but you know, even with it not being that this year, they're still going to want to have some blow away announcements. And it's been so long since we've heard or seen any kind of status update on Prime 4, and Retro's still hiring developers to streamline Prime 4 and finish the game's development. I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to, well, one, not be finished with it. I don't think we should be expecting that game to launch anytime in the immediate future, but rather get some kind of development update similar to what they do with like the Zelda Breath of the Wild, where, hey fans, thank you for your patience. We do need more time with the game, and while you're waiting, here's Metroid Prime Trilogy HD coming to the Nintendo Switch. That is what my hope is. There is that chance because Retro had to basically, you know, rework the game, and maybe they only got done with Prime 1 when they had to focus their development efforts more onto Prime 4 since they were reassigned that project. It's totally, I need my morph ball for this. I know I got to fight a boss coming up here pretty soon that I actually get either my morph ball. You know, I've purposely been holding off on replaying these games for so long because of these leaks and rumors suggesting they're coming to the Switch. Like, I don't even want to get too far into any of the Prime games right now, just because I want to have that fresh experience again. So I need to get, I think, missiles first, and then I can get through one of these doors over here. As I mentioned, the sidetrack gameplay talk is real, so we'll keep going this direction over here. But yeah, I personally think that these games are real. They are coming to the Switch, and the question is just going to be, is did Retro actually get the time and the, you know, what they needed to do to get all of them remade, or should we only be expecting Prime 1? Because, you know, to talk about how revolutionary these games were, so you kind of have, Metroid is an interesting one for me. I'm very picky when it comes to series that I get like heavily invested in, that I just stay, that's exactly where we came from, that I just stay invested the entire time. I don't have my morph ball yet, so where am I supposed to go? That I just stay invested in like heavily over the years, and Metroid is one that kind of has like the puzzle elements of Zelda a little bit, but you have like weapon upgrades and things as you go along. You see off in the distance over there we have a missile expansion that we can't get to yet. All these kind of cool elements. If you guys did play Metroid Dread at all, you will know kind of some of the core formula of how a Metroid game works. But what Retro did whenever they created Metroid Prime 1 through 3 is they just brought that into a 3D first person perspective, and they just did it so incredibly well. The energy tank up there that we can access later on, you see hints of things that you need to come back to later on, but you're not entirely sure, and I believe this might be our path here, but you're not entirely sure, you know, how everything's going to progress and circle back through. So, you know, just brilliant level design, brilliant action moments. Now, as I mentioned, I'm griping about some of the motion controls here. It's not terrible. They do actually work probably better in this game than most Wii games, to be fair, and I do think that Retro did a great job programming them. But if we got a Prime Trilogy HD re-release with the option, because I'm sure, you know, depending on your age and when you played these Prime games for the first time, you might have more nostalgia for the motion controls, and I totally get that. I, however, played them primarily on the GameCube and really would like the button options on all 3 games, especially Prime Corruption, since I've only played that one once, and I literally have the least memories of that game and how it progresses. And I know, you know, it's divisive to ask what Prime game is the favorite. I think like online, if you just poll most users, they will say that Metroid Prime 1 is the go-to, or at least the most memorable for them. However, the other ones are ultimately quality as well. And it'll be interesting, you know, to see if they include that option for, hey, play all 3 of these games, but play them how you remember them. So we give you the option to do Joy-Con aiming motion control, which is really nice that you don't even need a sensor bar. That, by the way, took me quite a while to find for this video. I had it buried in my closet, and then I found one, and the cable was chewed up, and then luckily I found the one that I think comes with the Wii U. But anyway, that's a little side tangent with my experience today trying to find the sensor bar so I can make this video. But you know, you don't have to do that on the Joy-Cons, and the gyro aiming really works nicely, as I was very impressed on that with Skyward Sword. Just with the responsiveness, I think you could even argue that it probably works just a little bit better than the Wiimote and the Wii Motion Plus, which I'm actually using. Hold up to the camera there, see if it'll focus in. The Skyward Sword Special Edition Wiimote that did come with Wii Motion Plus baked into the controller itself, because if you guys weren't around in the whole Wii generation, you had a version of the remote that was first released, and essentially it could not track your wrist movement. Then they came out with Wii Motion Plus, which was an add-on to the controller. Kind of looked, you know, clunky if you did that, but you know, you did have to do that for certain games that did the motion tracking on the wrist, like Skyward Sword. And then by the time Skyward Sword, and there's my missile tank right here, and I believe I have to fight a boss right now to get it. And Skyward Sword launched, and it came with that special edition remote control, and this has always been my go-to Wiimote ever since. It's funny to play in today in 2022 with the classic, you know, remote and nunchuck get up again. I do remember right now this is a perfect example. I just kind of moved it to show you guys, and I have to reorient it with the TV, and just kind of like looking and aiming. Like I'm okay with it. It's not terrible, but I'm also like, I would rather have a controller stick to do this. Now there's also the argument that so if you remember on the GameCube versions of these games, you know, they had, wow, and these guys are just stopping too fast for me to actually be able to shoot them. If you remember on the GameCube version of these games, you actually had the C stick, but it was not like what you used to aim. You essentially used the R button to stop and look around, which some people may have not been a fan of. It personally didn't bother me at all one bit. But it is one of those things that I could maybe see them doing modern controls with a analog, you know, how you play a first-person shooter nowadays. And I wish I had my missiles, because, I mean, I know that's what we're working on getting here, but I could do some serious damage to this boss with it if I did. So, you know, it's one of those things that, will they update it for modern shooter-style controls where we're actually using the right analog stick to aim, and then they also do the motion thing as an option? Like, all of that stuff's up for debate and speculation. I'm just going to be struggling here with this motion-based controls, and you guys will probably laugh at me if you're, you know, better at this and definitely, you know, have more nostalgia for playing this mode of the game. But it's just, you know, it wasn't for me. And if you see, kind of like, I'm not really moving the Joy-Con very much at all, but every time I press that A button, just that slight move, and to be fair, I might just really need to like recalibrate the sensitivity of this thing, but it's like moving around without me moving it, which is just, you know, extremely frustrating. It's not like this is a high intensity boss battle or anything. There's definitely some crazier ones later on, but regardless, I'll stop ranting about motion controls, and like, clearly you guys should know that, there's no surprise to how I'd prefer to play this game. But and I think, does this damage me? Yes, it does. Oh, well, dear God, I'm really in a pickle now, aren't I? So we'll probably end up just dying here, because I don't even know can I get up these stairs? Yes, I can. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have to call the video soon, but I kind of did want to revisit this subject, because a lot of people see it and they're like, these games aren't real. They're never going to come out. I'm willing to bet money that we're pretty close to an official announcement from Nintendo. I bet you anything we hopefully get it at the Direct. Obviously, that's not a guarantee by any means, but I do think that, you know, betting man, that is the spot that we see it at. And then I think it's just time, because, you know, Nintendo knows what they're doing with Metroid now. Like Metroid Dread, they were very happy with sales-wise. It hit almost 3 million copies, at least from what they've officially reported. It's probably over that now. Hashtag RGT should have to play Balan Wonderland, but you know, whatever. It's one of those fun Spawncast bets that they had going on in the gaming community. If you guys watch other channels, shout outs to all those guys. Definitely enjoy their content. But they had that bet going on, and you know, it's one of those things that I do think that I do bet you that anything that it's probably over that 3 million mark now, but Nintendo may not ever talk about it again. So to be fair, he kind of wins on a technicality there. I think they know what they're doing with the sales momentum of this game, though, in the fact that they don't want to just release Prime 4, which is like, okay, unless they retitle the game, you call it Metroid Prime 4, and nobody has any clue what's happened in the story and in the lore up to that point, in over like 20 years since the original one was released. Like, I don't know about you guys, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So I definitely think that that's kind of what we're going to be expecting is a Metroid Prime, hopefully the trilogy. I think it is a misstep to just only give us one, but if they give us Trilogy HD with the option for button and motion controls, that is about as good as it gets in my book, and that's what I'm hoping for. Now, rather than just struggling here, because I think I'm probably in like one phase away from winning, I think we will call the video. Let's look at yeah, we're already at like almost 14 minutes on my filming time, so we will call it here. If I can figure out how to pause, of course you press the 1 button to pause. The Wii was such an interesting button motion control layout. Like if you go back to the Wii and you play right now in 2022, it's a weird thing to adapt back to. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your thoughts, memories, nostalgia for the Metroid Prime trilogy. What's your favorite game out of the 3 if you had to pick one? What do you think about the leaks and rumors? Are you thinking that they are very likely and will happen this year like I am, or do you think this is one of those things that's been miscommunicated over time and that these projects aren't real? Do you think that Nintendo will release Metroid Prime 4 without throwing us the trilogy, or at least Metroid Prime 1 Remake first? Or do you think that that's definitely their lead off with how they market that game? So regardless of all your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today in the video, I do look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments down below before you leave, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch Friday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss an interesting and questionable leak around new Nintendo Switch hardware and a broad discussion around N64 games roadmap for Nintendo Switch online expansion pack being completed now up to this point in time, and what to expect for the future of the service. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.